Okay, so I'll commence the Water, Sewer, Stormwater Committee meeting, and we've started at 6. So what's the first thing on the agenda, gentlemen?
Call to order, and then after that, request to consider offering additional cart sizes. We had this request made, I guess, really kind of late summer, early fall last year from David Nacklis. Basically, the nature of the request was that we should offer additional cart sizes. Just for your information, right now, garbage carts, we offer a 48 and 96 gallon option, and recycling carts, we offer 65 and 96 gallon options. Basically, the idea is if we offered more cart sizes with reduced cart sizes, that we should charge less for those customers. We did speak to Waste Industries in regards to the recycling, and they would probably charge the same rate considering the contract, even if it were an additional small size. So the town wouldn't receive, at least as long as we're under contract with them, we wouldn't receive the benefit of that. A couple, I guess, things that to consider are the fact that we would have to have, obviously, an additional inventory of cart sizes available, which, you know, not the end of the world, but we'd have to have them available. So a little bit extra inventory. Also, it's probably going to be a little more labor intensive if we actually have to track every individual customer and their cart size, what they have, to make sure it's matching the billing. You know, you would expect they have the cart size, you know, we'd have to do periodic, just kind of, I guess, confirmation of that. Probably once a year, make sure they're still using the appropriate size cart, which they should still have. But, you know, just maybe a little bit of follow-up, you know, make sure people aren't taking other people's carts, things like that. Because obviously there would be a different cost associated with it. I think staff's kind of general consensus on it is that we'd probably prefer not to do it. And I guess specifically the fact that we are under the Waste Industries contract for the recycling. We could reevaluate that at the end of the contract with them. But right now, like I say, I think our perceptions from them is that we wouldn't receive the benefit of the reduced cost from them in billing for the reduced cart size.
It does seem like a lot of extra administrative work that would be a challenge to track.
And cost.
Yes.
Yes. It just doesn't seem feasible right now to me to have that many multiple cart sizes and track them. I don't see how it's possible.
Yeah. We have a small and large for our typical solid waste or trash pickup, and then we have a small and large for recycling. So
yeah,
that's the option that we have right now. So Marissa, do you want to continue a conversation or make a recommendation to council? I mean, I see the gentleman's point, but I think what we have right now suffices, especially concerning cost and purchasing new carts and maintaining those. And
I agree with you, Henry. I think right now with the deal that we got, as low as we did on the recycle, to me, it would be a nightmare. We'd be ruining that deal. And that just doesn't seem like something I want to go down. So I would say no action at this point.
It doesn't really need to go back to council per se. If that's the recommendation of the council, you know, I can relay that on to Mr. Nacklis. You know, I can tell him that we'd probably be willing to consider it potentially after the contract renewal with Waste Industries. But I think you'd still have some of the same concerns.
Yeah, and during contract negotiations, it's a great time to talk about it. I just don't think we're equipped right now.
Well, I mean, prior to any type of contract negotiation with recycling, council would need to weigh in whether they wanted to go smaller or have a smaller option at that time. You're welcome to come to council. Randy, if you would give him the date that contract, at least 6 months prior, council, I would assume council would need to weigh in on that. But we're not going to do any recommendations to council at this time.
Okay. Next item, request to consider extra individual carts or recycling carts or garbage carts for a partial fee. And what we've, I guess, kind of particularly heard is a desire for additional recycling carts. Although when we've reached out to Waste Industries in that regard, we can provide the additional recycling cart at basically the additional $5 fee that we were offering above the previous $17 flat fee for garbage. So if you are a garbage and recycling customer, for an additional $5 past the $20 base fee, you could get an additional recycling cart. Staff's agreeable to that. Waste Industries is agreeable to that. You know, it's a little bit of extra tracking, but not so much that basically once we have it set up in the account, until it changes, basically we would be good with that. We would also be open to, if the committee would want to consider it, and we actually haven't heard this, but if people wanted an additional garbage cart on top of the base service, to offer that at the $17, if the committee and council are agreeable to that. We don't have any issue with that.
I would suspect the garbage went way down and recycling went way up.
I would say that's the case.
Mm-hmm. I've also heard citizens ask for this, and they don't understand why they would have to purchase both. So if I just am the conduit for that conversation, it is definitely a need in the community.
If, you know, that'd be a council decision if you wanted to charge basically separately for garbage and recycling, that could be a council decision. But, you know, right now we're charging jointly for both services though. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously it would kind of open up a little bit of a new set of billing with finance, because you need basically another classification, or probably two other classifications, one for both customers, one for garbage and one for recycling, if you were going to open it up for eligibility for each one separately.
Now,
but it's kind of similar. It's kind of similar. I mean, we're going to have to do the same things to the accounts to add an extra garbage cart or add an extra recycling cart.
Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to kind of clarify, we're only talking about adding an extra cart if you already have a
existing service, which is basically the $22 garbage and recycling service that everybody has now.
Okay, all right, that makes sense to me. I mean, unless there's some issue that the staff sees, I think that's a benefit to the citizens. And I really see people getting more recycling carts if they wanted that.
That's definitely been the request that we're getting. It's not really for an extra garbage cart, it's for an extra recycling cart.
Right.
And Randy, these are people who already have the 96 gallon of each?
Correct.
Okay.
I know, honestly, I would probably do another recycle as well. Ours is packed every time to pick up. So I would be in support of it. Henry, how do you feel about making a recommendation?
Yeah. I'd be fine with making a recommendation to council and let us decide as a whole.
Yep, I agree. Okay.
Staff will go ahead and pursue that then. Okay, garbage and recycling holiday pickup schedule. I'll bring that up for you. Just a second.
Is that for the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday, since we've already passed July 4th?
Yes, and just basically our policies in general.
Okay.
You know, formerly we had traditionally set pickup for the days following collection. That's kind of historically. Recently, we've actually started doing pickup for many of the holidays prior to the holidays. Part of the reason we were doing that is to try to prevent so many days between pickups for them. Let's say you have a holiday pickup on a Friday. If we don't pick it up on Thursday, you know, they've got to go Saturday, Sunday, and Monday till we do the pickup otherwise. So the thought was we get them one day earlier rather than 3 days later.
All right, let's use my example. my pickup's on Wednesday. Let's say Christmas is on Wednesday. What are you proposing?
Okay. Well, that's really the discussion. If I can bring up, hang on just a second, I'll bring
But
up.
what would be the options?
Well, again, we could go before the holidays, we could go after, and when there's a multi-holiday, we could split it really any way we want. Thanksgiving is usually probably the toughest because we get the Wednesday, the Thursday, and the Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got basically that 5-day block with no service between the weekend and the holidays.
Right.
Did we change it last year?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And it worked out pretty well, I thought.
Well, it is working well. We do get occasional complaints of confusion that basically they didn't think that the collection was that day. You know what I mean? They didn't think the Thursday prior, whereas they would have kind of recognized that the service didn't come on the Friday and they would have put it out on the Monday.
Right. I guess what I'm asking, typically at Thanksgiving, groceries, trash does, or solid waste does build up. You have the family in, you're cooking more than typically you have all week. So what did we do this year? If you had a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday pickup, when did we pick up that? The week prior to, and that's it? Or what did we do this year? Because it seemed to be a little bit more successful this year than it did in years past. Right?
Hang on just a second, I'll try to bring that up. This is the holiday schedule that's actually proposed for next year, although I think it's basically based on what we've done this year. Basically, if you take a look, January 1st is a Friday, and the alternate collection day would actually, in this case, be the Monday. I know that's kind of a little contradictory there, I think. Actually, it looks like they're dropping most of these back to Monday next year. That is contrary to the way we've handled it this year, though. So I guess this isn't the best example to provide. But I'll give you an example. If the holidays this current year have been falling on a Friday, we have been doing the pickup on Thursdays. If the holidays have been falling on Mondays, I believe we've been doing those pickups on Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm. It does make sense to pick it up as, soon or close to the date that they're used to. And I did want to mention, I really think those big VDOT type of signs really help people. They read them. They've mentioned them to me about pickup changes. So I know I really like that. Pass along a few of those comments.
Yeah, and that's something we could probably recommend as a committee to continue to have during those upcoming holidays.
Yeah, it's a great way to get the word out, especially by the grocery stores. That's, a heavily trafficked space.
Basically, like I say, it's kind of town decision as to how we handle it. It's really kind of a matter of personal preference, whether you would want to pick up a Friday on a Thursday or whether you'd want to wait until the following Monday. I can see that people wouldn't necessarily be thinking about it on the Thursday, because they're thinking, oh, my pickup day's on Friday. So they kind of do have to think a little bit ahead when a holiday's coming up.
Well, just for me, I would like a pickup. I would want it sooner, only because I know during a holiday, I'm probably going to fill it up more than normal. So picking it up after, it might be overflowing at that point.
So
how do you feel, Henry?
Yeah, I would almost, just think of it right now. It would be, as long as it's close to the holiday, I think that, that would probably work. Because when I see that date for New Year's, you've gone a whole week. If your pickup was Friday, I take it, Randy, and then the week before, and then it's going to be a whole week plus a week, or it's basically going to be 2 weekends if we're looking at January 1st, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
That's just
I'd
too long.
almost want it picked up prior to that, and then get back on the schedule like where it's a December, 30th or 31st. If we're comparing specifically that holiday.
Okay. So continue with the Thursday prior for Friday holidays. Okay.
I would support that.
Mm-hmm. Are you taking this to council?
Well, that's the way we're handling it right now. So unless there's a change, I wouldn't necessarily need to. And to be honest, It's kind of basically been staff policy on the pickup. It hasn't been necessarily a council mandate.
Right.
So if you're comfortable, just basically continue to handle it as we handle it. We'll just continue that way.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay. Next item is recycling sites. Of course, right now we still have the recycling site at the high school, and we still have the site at Home Depot. Back in March, because of COVID-19, we basically curtailed our pulling out of the recycling sites. These are two sites that we don't really have a strong history of people dumping at. I think probably in large part because they're both on video. The high school property is videotaped, and the Home Depot property is videotaped. I think Home Depot does actually kind of help us monitor it a little bit also. If they do see somebody dump, they'll call and alert us to it. So, I think that situation kind of helps a little bit. But it did seem to be a desire to do away with the recycling sites, at least those that we were having an issue with, as far as dumping, which namely the Cambria Street site and the downtown site on Betty Drive were I think kind of really the two problem areas. Do you care to continue with the removal of the recycling carts, or do you care to leave those two in place? And if we do away with them, do we still want to try to leave some type of cardboard recycling site?
Good question. Because I believe people have gotten used to going to the county sites or MRFSWA. I'd still like to keep the plan as it is. I've not heard from citizens who feel passionate enough about leaving any of them open. I think so far they've understood why we've closed them. And I don't know if I want to change the momentum of that.
Okay. Now the MCPS are the ones who reached out and said they wanted us to keep the recycling up at the high school, right?
They did, but they didn't want to take the trailer over themselves. We did ask them to consider that, and they don't want it.
We offered to give it to them and for them to manage a program, which would be great for their environmental club.
Right.
For that, and they elected not to do it, if my memory serves, right?
Correct.
How is the cardboard recyclable container? I mean, how is that? I know that's not where you cannot fit a giant trash bag in there, or you'd almost have to individually drop your trash item per item in there. But what are the numbers on that cardboard recycling? Because that plays a big role. I think for at least. I mean,
Christmas,
I think
Christmas
that pays
holidays like that, it certainly gets used. It is a pretty clean, I guess, receptor as far as it's generally only cardboard. Like you say, it's kind of hard to put anything else in it. We have had one previously, I guess years ago, we used to have it at the rec center. And we had a cardboard recycling location at a few other places, like the Food Line Plaza over there at the Gateway Plaza. We still have one at the Home Depot property. The high school site does not have cardboard recycling, though. It's just basically the recycling trailer.
I've got an idea, and I'm coming in from left field here. Why can't we just put it in the rear of if people in the county or people who don't do the curbside pickup do use it? Why can't we just keep it in the cage up at the rec center in the corner?
We can, and that's where we had it previously.
Well, can't we just keep one, which is the plastic, and one of the regular recyclable containers, probably one of the new ones that can handle a little bit more volume, and the cardboard, and just leave it there?
To keep them at the rec center?
Yeah, in the back, in the cage.
If you added a recycling cart back there, I think you'd see a lot more traffic back there, which.
But that's only during the day. It's locked up on weekends, and it's easier to monitor, and it's our property,
Yes,
right?
It is. It's correct. I do think, like I say, I don't think we're necessarily having dumping issues at Home Depot, though.
And do they still make money off of cardboard? Or
Yes,
are
we do.
losing money?
We do make money off of cardboard. Not much.
Sure. But
What are the,
it covers the expenses associated with it, like the pickup and staff.
Cardboards and metals are really the only things you make money off of.
is it a break even? Are these two breaking even? I mean, for the cost?
I'd say a slight profit. Maybe after collection cost, maybe not, but I'd say we're probably turning a slight profit.
How about ruined batches or loads that can't be used? I mean, with this discussion, are they? Go ahead.
Cardboard, it is a little cleaner load because of the slots that you have to get it in. They're usually 4 inches or so. It's just kind of tough to put anything else in there. You definitely aren't going to be sticking your household garbage through a 4-inch slot, I don't think.
But we're still having an issue with the other recyclables where people are still dumping their trash at those two locations. It may not be as much as the Cambria or Betty, but they're still doing it and ruining basically the whole load, right?
To some degree. Like I say, not nearly on the scale that was happening at Cambria Street and Betty Drive.
I would almost like to just table this discussion, and Marissa, and just invite you and Brandy, you reach out to Mr. Everly and just see if we can't relocate the cardboard and the other recyclable container to the rec center where it's managed. If we want to keep something open for citizens who aren't getting curbside pickup, and so that they can still recycle if they wish. And I agree, they can still go to the county. But, I would almost rather do that or continue on that with the program, or closing the program that we started 6 months ago. What do you think, Marissa?
I'm all for closing them right now.
Okay.
Sorry. We may have to agree to disagree. I completely understand where you're coming from, though, Henry. And if that was the decision, I would 100% support it. I think that having recycle sites are wonderful, but over the time, we've just seen them so abused, and it costs the taxpayers more money to clean it up. So I would just say stay on course myself. But if that's what we want, I won't argue about it. I understand.
No, we tend to forget about the county sites, which are within easy driving distance. So, and I even forgot it when I was going down that path on my thought of having just something centralized. But Merrimack's very close. It's within, easy driving distance of the town of Christiansburg Center. So, yeah, Randy, is this coming before us because a couple council members wanted to revisit this, or what?
Well, just to verify you want to close them down, since we did basically kind of put it on hold because of COVID-19 back in March. We were kind of in the middle of shutting it down then, and basically committee told us to basically put it on hold until we're a little further through the COVID crisis.
Well, council did weigh in on this, and I'm not going to take it back before council because there are actually local alternatives to the county. So let's just continue on with closing them.
Okay. I might maybe mention that in weekly update or something to council, just to give them an FYI, but yeah, I don't necessarily see that it needs to go back to them, since that was kind of the direction we were going.
Right.
Well, the council did weigh in on it, and I would just give a FYI when the program ends.
Okay.
Not it's going to end in a month, or when the program ended. You can fill in council at that point, because council did have an official vote on that, in my opinion.
I agree with you, Henry. Since it did go through council already, I see that all we've done is delay the progress that we meant to make because of COVID. We're just getting back on track. My 2 cents.
Okay. I'll go ahead and proceed with closing the sites, and I'll update council on that. Okay, next item is stormwater utility program and fees, and I'd asked Wayne to be on. I think he's probably tied up in the meeting, but I guess we can go ahead and start talking about it.
You should.
He's here. He's here.
Okay. Didn't see him down the screen. Okay. Hi, Wayne.
Hi. How is everyone?
Great.
Good.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Good, good. Randy, I have a stormwater subdirectory under the stormwater, water, sewer, solid waste, stormwater committee folder. If you wanted to bring those documents up.
Okay.
Since
Do you want to share it, or do you want to?
That's your call, Randy.
Well, do you have something? Do you know an order you want to go through them?
Well, what I have is a spreadsheet that we developed back in February, prior to Justin St. Clair presenting to council. That was when I was waylaid with my knee operation, and he gracefully stood in for me. I have that presentation PowerPoint available, and a spreadsheet that we had developed at that point, which summarized the revenues and expenditures for the stormwater program up through and including last year's budget, being FY20, that of course ended last week. And those are projected numbers, but it gives you a very good feel for where the program is at. So you may want to start with the spreadsheet that outlines the revenues. And the expenditures, of course. And I have capital projects included in there as well. So you see where all the money is going.
Just a sec, trying to share my screen. Can't find my share screen button.
Wayne, is this part of the presentation we saw earlier this year, or back in November?
I don't know if I don't believe the spreadsheet was part of that presentation. I didn't actually, sir, I didn't see it in the folder from back then, only this presentation, right? I brought that into this meeting in case you wanted to pick back up there. Like discussion of reinstituting the committee to evaluate this program. That
Reinstituting the committee is something we've talked about, but in typical fashion, I mean, there has been stormwater issues that have arisen this past year, up on College Street and it's almost as if when we have these major rain events now, and there's a need for better stormwater control, it's almost like we're validating more and more this fee that's being charged. So I'm looking forward to seeing this spreadsheet, but I guess I want to ask Marissa, is this something you wish to continue with, having a committee look at it with the recent events? Because whenever there's these stormwater projects, and Wayne and Randy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they're usually multi-million-dollar projects.
Correct.
For these,
Well,
to have any impact on these certain hot spots around town, correct?
I would appreciate continuing the conversation. I know that there's projects that need to be done. I know that we have DEQ on us to get some things completed, which is the need for the fee. But I still look at the businesses who are suffering right now, and I think the rates that they're being charged it's painful. So if we could even take a look at that, it may take us longer to get the money that we need for these projects, and that is unfortunate. But I don't think right now is a good time for us to keep the structure the way it is.
I'll just scroll through the project spreadsheet quickly. I guess part of the idea of the spreadsheet is to give you an idea of where we're spending the money, obviously. Some of the projects we've done: South Franklin Street, Church and Lucas, Ellett Drive, Hans Meadow, Blue Leaf Stream Restoration Phase 1 and 2, the Town Branch Stream Restoration, the North Franklin Street project, the Industrial Park Stormwater improvements, the watershed study, and also the Hickok Street improvements, Phase 1. All have been funded through the stormwater fee. Of course, we're still paying Hickok Street improvements.
Could you scroll up, Randy?
Sure.
I can't see the bottom of the spreadsheet.
Well, I can't show you the whole spreadsheet at one time. So
Can
at least and have it legible.
Right, but can you scroll it up so we can see the bottom?
Yes, certainly.
Projects.
Okay, just some of the operating expenses that we have, of course, those were capital projects, but operating expenses, and this can include things like engineering staff time, also things like public works time for cleaning drainage ditches, maintenance of stormwater ponds, use of the street sweeper, anything like that's chargeable to the stormwater utility. So those are some of the expenses related to that. And of course, you have a total table for expenses. And basically, just to kind of give you an idea that we are subsidizing the stormwater program still.
I just want to make a comment here. This is a very challenging and tough topic right now, of course, with all of our recent flooding. But I think this is great to share, to show the citizens where the funding's coming from, how much we have, where it's being spent, and exactly how much money these things cost. Because I know before now, or being on council, I would not have understood that a certain project would have been over $1 million. And I think that that's important, because when citizens look at their bills and they're saying, it's $6 for a stormwater runoff fee, and then I have rain in my yard, which I think we've all heard the similar complaints and issues. I just want to be as transparent as we can and let them know that these are the projects that are being covered. And if there is an issue, then of course, just in engineering, he can look at it. We can add it to the list. It doesn't happen overnight. So I just wanted to throw a little bit of that explanation out there for people who might be watching this or watching this later. Thanks.
One thing I will tell you is, I guess two of the more prominent flooding areas that we had problems with that I think we've definitely made improvements to are the Hans Meadow area and also the Brown Church and Lucas area over in Cambria. I think the projects that we've done over there have definitely improved flooding in those areas. I kind of don't really question it myself. And I think most of the people in those areas recognize that. You know, obviously College Street and 2nd Street area are still areas that we need to deal with.
Right. And is that something, Wayne, that you're currently tackling?
Working on a presentation for next meeting, your next council meeting, to address the College Street drainage basin issues.
Is there also conversation in what you've found out about anything that may be in the way, like fencing, that could inhibit water flowing through and draining properly?
Yes, I'm going to address that as well. And that everyone is cognizant of property rights, and we certainly recognize that. And code does address it to a level, but as we saw recently here during into May, that that can really change in the course of 30 minutes. The impact it can have. Water is a very powerful force. So I think we need participation from people. I think recognizing there is a problem, and you know, to the extent that they contribute to the issue. I think they're, go ahead, Mia. Yes.
I was just going to say, I fully support some type of an open forum where, you know, where people can talk about the issues, but also be open to solutions. So, you know, if there is something on your property you're not aware of that could help water flow, you know, openly discuss it. Just so, you know, all of us can learn and help out.
Well, you know, Wayne has been talking to an upstream, I guess, potential developer who's looking, like I say, a potential upstream development, and we're talking about possible town participation in a larger stormwater pond to try to help serve the area. Try to do over detention with their project.
Oh, that would be nice. Yes.
And we have required over detention with some of the approvals that we've done in that basin, with conditional use permit approvals in that area. So that's something we've done with prior approvals. Some of the apartments that were built in there, their stormwater facilities had to over detain.
I see. Well, that's really good. I'm thankful and appreciative, because I know citizens are in need.
I'll say this, I think that the developments that were there that have been built, at least in the 22 years that I've been at the town, they all seem to function appropriately.
I'll have part of my presentation a slide that shows, you know, the limits of town in 1966 when this area came into town, and how many of those homes were already built. And I'll share with you that, you know, regulations are different today than they were back in the 60s. You know, back in those days, VDOT, you know, not trying to diss on them, but because their regulations have changed as well, but they would stick a culvert underneath the road and let the water go. And
Right.
here we are, you know, 50, 60 years later, and we're still in the same position. Nothing has changed, except I'm not going to get into global warming, and we have experienced some very heavy downfalls in the last 10 years, and ones that make me stay awake at night.
So Wayne, I'm looking forward to your presentation to council concerning this area. I'm sure there'll be some good information in there for us to sort of take in and digest a little bit. But to get back to the Stormwater Committee, which is, Marissa, you said, I mean, that's been a discussion for a couple years now.
Mhm.
Are we going to move forward with reforming some sort of a committee with local citizens or with town citizens and town businesses like we did a number of years ago to come up with this? Are we going to make that recommendation to council? Because I know we've been talking about it, but or are we not? Are we just going to leave it as is?
Well, Randy, you may remember, I mean, because it's been a while since we've had a meeting, but the group that was around that table explaining how the fees work and how they came up with them, I believe they were going to pull or make recommendations possibly on a committee that they'd recommend. Do you know if am I remembering correctly?
We did have a presentation to council where we presented, I guess, a tentative composition to the committee. Although we didn't have names associated with it, just kind of more what type of representation you would like from the public, basically.
Right. Because I remember we were going to make sure there was a local small business, a
Yes.
citizen. Yeah. I think that's still a good idea, Henry, if you're okay with it. You're muted.
How long's it been, Randy? Because it was a very dynamic subcommittee that had business owners and citizens on it. And then I think it took, 6 months to just review it with staff?
I think it was around the beginning of the year, wasn't it, Wayne? Like maybe February?
Yeah.
No, the initial program. How long has it been?
Yes. Yeah, that was, I guess, about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, my rule of thumb has always been like, look at it at the minimum every 5 years. And Randy, I know you guys do that with any fees that we have out there, comparisons, projects, things of that nature. So I would not have a problem with recommending that council move forward with another stormwater committee.
If I could add something to that too, is, we are in unique times. And I think that what a person may decide today wouldn't be good 2 years from now. So I think possibly 2 versions, a current COVID, and then when we're coming out of COVID, a different schedule.
So Randy, how did we come about getting the participants on that committee a few years ago?
Well, basically, I think we kind of tried to have some type of representation from engineering community, private citizens, business community. We did have, just to give you an example, from business community, we had Tom Rutledge from Sheeler Motor Mall and Shaw Development. We had Brian Rice, who's local realtor. We had a local citizen. We had Sam Bauer from Allegheny Street. We had Andy Kassoff. Well, I think kind of led the committee from EEE Engineering. I think Wayne and some of his staff kind of helped with the committee also. Wayne, anybody else in particular you can think of?
Don't recall his name, but the manager at Home Depot, he participated. And Lance from over at
Echo Star Dish Network.
Yes, sir.
Lance Porter.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Well, Marissa, what you're saying is, do you want to form a committee now and then have them reconvene in 2 years after they've done a review and come out of COVID? Or do you want to wait until we see sort of like the end of this epidemic, which we're coming out of? I mean, we're in phase 3 right now. Do you want it to be formed at the new year to give staff enough time to sort of narrow their prospects down for this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, my idea would be get the committee formed. It's probably going to take a few months to do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then plenty of time before the end of the year to try to come up with some type of a solution. And I know it's not the end of the fiscal year, but it would be a good time to modify. But I see financially, it's going to probably be a good 2 years for, I know, people to come out of this this financial strain of COVID. So even though if we might make a decision today, I see it being in place for 2 years before it even went back to a normal schedule. What's your thoughts on that, Henry?
Well, my thoughts is, typically more people look at this review committee. You're either going to have citizens who look at it like we're going to drop the fee and business owners, or this is a committee that's going to be put together and should act independently to figure out whether or not we are accomplishing what we needed to with the stormwater. And it could go two ways. I'm not saying it would go up because I don't think council would at least currently would not institute it increasing, but it could very well keep it the same.
And I think that's the chance we take. That's the whole purpose of an independent board. And I welcome that.
Okay.
The
But for me, I would almost like for a committee to give staff enough time to develop criteria for the committee members. We want to make sure we touch, base with businesses like that have large pervious services or surfaces that pay a lot towards this, all the way down to the small business, but also the citizens. Have them represented on there, because Randy, I think what we received last time was the residents, they pay more than what the businesses do. That's the take-in from the stormwater fee. The residents, and to me, it's a significant difference. It may not be to most people, but our residents do contribute more to that stormwater fee than the businesses. So I would almost like to see this committee give staff enough time to form it if council approves by November. And then we have a recommendation prior to the next fiscal year, let's say by April or May. That should give them enough time. Wayne, Randy, do you think if council approves to move forward with this, that would give them enough time to come up with a decision? If it's a late decision, closer to when the budget's already done and stormwater projects already, of course, we could put it into place. And if there was any decrease or in that fee or in those funds, we would almost have to make it stagnant for the upcoming year so we can complete those projects and have those funded, and then at a future date lower that. But what do you guys think?
Fine with that. In regards to the actual names for the committee, would you want staff to come up with those and then run them by this committee?
Well, if I could interject on that one, when we did it in the central business for the arts board, it worked really well just to open it up. And then central business got together and narrowed it down and made choices and recommendations. And that seemed to work very well. I might recommend that. I don't want to, I don't have the right word here, but I don't want someone who may be interested not to have the opportunity.
So advertise a little bit for interest in it then and bring all the names back to this committee?
Yeah, I do think there should be some criteria
Yes.
to that.
Yeah, just like we look for experience with art in the art committee, so I think we could as well here. And it was a form to fill out. They had to apply, so there had to be interest on their part.
We do have a little guidance from council too in regards to the composition for the committee. So.
Okay.
And if I have a recommendation too, Val had told us how many people were in a certain category. And perhaps when we develop the committee, the percentages should be the same. So if, big business takes up 10%, maybe they just get one person on the board. Do you know what I'm saying? Kind of makes it a fair representation.
How large was the other board, there were 6 or 7 of them, weren't there?
Mhm.
Yes.
I just keep it about the same, but I agree. But Marissa, with, you're big and, you need a local,
Mhm.
well, even a big business could be a local business. So, and then of course we want citizens who reside within town on that committee too. And then assign a staff member to that. Wayne, you probably are it. Okay. But how do we proceed forward, gentlemen? And
With your permission, I'm going to go ahead and, like I say, go ahead and solicit for interest in that committee. We can probably get that advertised within a week or so.
Mhm.
Come up with names. We'll certainly point it out to anybody that might be interested that we know of that, in particular that maybe has expertise in stormwater.
Yeah.
I think we will probably, to get the composition that council wants, we probably will have to point it out to a few people. Like, for example, the large impervious owners, I
Mhm.
doubt they're necessarily checking the paper for an ad for something like that. But if we point it out and that we're soliciting for input, that we'll get some type of participation from a good variety.
What about on the water bills?
We certainly can advertise it on those too.
how many members are you thinking? 7?
Something like that, yes.
I will.
Or is that too many? Wayne?
I was going to throw in here that back in February when we started talking about this, I had reached out to some of the previous members on the committee. Brian Rice at that time did not express interest in rejoining. Tom Rutledge, he had interest, and Sam Bauer, Dr. Bauer, as a citizen, he was interested in joining the committee again. Dr. Bauer was very helpful with staff when it came to statistical analysis. That's his background. That's his doctorate, and he was very helpful with staff, aiding staff as we put this together initially.
Well, I mean, who decided the members of the committee last time? I'm trying to think. I was on council, but did we approve that, or was it an ad hoc that was put together?
Randy, I think we put the list together and discussed it with the mayor.
I think we did. We may have taken it to council at some point. I think we probably did. I can't swear to it though, because it's been 5 years ago.
Well, sounds like we have 2 previous members, and they're validated to be on there. I mean, in my opinion. And then Wayne, why don't you guys think about how many more members we need on there? And then we should take this to council for their review. We'll have to see how many people actually apply once we determine any type of, conditions on what it takes to be a member.
I guess you can see I'm sharing screen. This is from the presentation from February. Basically, the presentation included 2 residents, 2 small business owners, 2 large business owners, and basically 2 town of Christiansburg engineering consultants, along with town staff and support from our legal reps.
It seems like a fair breakdown.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thanks for the reminder.
Sure.
What's next?
That's the last item. Like I say, we will go ahead and proceed to advertise for those, and we'll specifically try to target those, 8 positions. That's all that's on the agenda, unless there's something else you'd want to bring up. I guess I will mention the post office trash can that you had mentioned to me, Marissa.
Yes.
We are monitoring that. We don't think it's a regularly occurring problem that we're getting household waste, although we do think probably there's one individual bringing it on occasion. We are going to try to basically figure out who that is, maybe talk to the post office, and maybe even try to look at video in the area if possible.
So this has,
I'd call it a small problem.
this has to do with the drop off, the outside receptacle at the post office people are dropping trash into.
Correct. And like I say, from the fact that it is a very limited problem, we really probably think it's just one person doing it.
I had received a complaint from a citizen concerned because it was overflowing and a lot of trash gets into, neighboring properties that way.
Yeah.
So I mentioned it to Randy.
I asked Jim to look into putting a decal or something on the side, basically saying no household waste, just to kind of clarify.
Yeah, if they'll pay attention to that.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's also part of just keeping our downtown clean too.
It is. I obviously don't want to remove trash cans from downtown because then you'll wind up with trash in the streets. So.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. All right. Thank you for that, Randy. I'll let him know by an email.
Okay.
All right. Is there anything else so we can adjourn this?
I have nothing.
All right. Wayne, Randy, appreciate it. And Marissa, thank you. And we'll see you on Tuesday.
All right. Bye.
Take care, everybody.